Personalization is super important when you're just starting out in business and you really want to develop that peer-to-peer conversation, or at least the feeling of a peer-to-peer interaction that you would get from like a mom and pop shop, right? It's going to make your customers more dedicated, more engaged with your store.
You are listening to the Messenger Mastermind podcast, a podcast that provides actionable tactics for quickly growing e-commerce companies to profitably scale their business. The strategies shared in this podcast are implemented daily by companies generating millions of dollars in revenue each year. Our goal is to help you build long-term profitable relationships with your customers.
What if your brand could leverage more customer data to combat data privacy changes and boost conversions? With Octane AI, any Shopify and Shopify Plus merchant can. Featuring Shop Quiz and conversational commerce, merchants use Octane AI to get to know their customers on a deeper level by collecting zero-party data. Using this data, you can engage with customers through a more personalized level across campaigns and flows across all channels, building lasting relationships. The ROI from using Octane AI is incredible. Brands have increased email signups by 16x and driven a 28% increase in AOV. Octane AI has plans for any size business. Learn more and get started on your zero-party data journey today at octaneai.com/mastermind. Did you know that loyal customers are 9 times more likely to convert compared to first-time shoppers? That's why using personalization to deliver an exceptional customer service is so key for your retention and growth. I recommend using Gorgias. Gorgias combines all of your communication channels like email, SMS, social media, live chat, and phone into one platform. It gives you an organized view of all of your tickets. This saves your support team hours per day and makes managing customer orders a breeze. With Gorgias, you can have customer order information right next to all of the tickets. So you can personalize responses with things like first name, order, and tracking number. Brands like Princess Polly, Olipop, and Steve Madden have reduced response times and increased efficiencies with Gorgias. For more information, go to gorgias.com and mention the Messenger Mastermind podcast to receive 2 months free. Welcome to another week's episode of the Messenger Mastermind podcast. As always, I am your host, Jeremy Horowitz, and today I am joined by my 2 incredible co-hosts, Mark Aruda and Ben Vandal, and we are super excited to bring you another series. So we're kicking off the personalization series today with a 4-part episode series all around how to bring more personalized relationships to your brand. We're going to go, the first 2 episodes are going to be Mark, Ben, and myself. We're going to give you our favorite tips, tactics, and strategies of how we figured this out, starting from 0 to scaling up to 8 figures. We're going to be bringing in Ben Parr, the president from Octane AI, to talk about the latest strategies that a lot of their leading brands are doing. And then we have a really exciting up-and-coming brand that we'll leave that for a mystery and surprise that we're going to be introducing as well. So let's dive right into it. Ben, do you want to just kick us off with some basic strategies on how to get going with personalization and really how to think about it when you're just getting going as a brand?
Yeah, I think personalization is super important when you're just starting out in business and you really want to develop that peer-to-peer conversation, or at least the feeling of a peer-to-peer interaction that you would get from like a mom and pop shop, right? It's going to make your customers more dedicated, more engaged with your store. So some really kind of simple ways you can do that, obviously, right off the bat, is to start with your communications, right? However you're communicating with your customer, whether that be email, text message, you can include something as simple as their first name in it. That really kind of catches their attention. We've seen studies where if you use it in the subject line, it increases open rates. So that's a really simple one you can do off the bat. And another one in the same vein is to kind of make it feel like a conversation. They don't want to talk to a company. They want to get emails from somebody at the company. So something simple you can do is kind of add a person's name that works at the company, probably a customer service agent, maybe an owner, in the email send name and the signature. And that'll kind of start it right off when you're starting out. Something you can do day one at a company to make the customer invested and feel like they're having a conversation with the customer or with an actual owner of the store.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. There's all those old like startup mantras and kind of adages of like, you should personally talk to your first 100 or first 1,000 customers. Whatever, I don't think the number is that important. Really, what's the more important concept is, especially early on, you should lead with yourself as the brand. And whether that's interviewing customers before you sell something, whether that's answering support tickets, whether that's being heavily involved in the marketing. It's so important, especially early on, like before you get to hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands of orders, that you really have those connections with your customers, because that's the data and the information that's going to allow you to really scale up your marketing. And in those early days, it is personal. Like, it really is you to one other person. And so creating that relationship early is really invaluable to get your, like, to help your brand gain momentum. But then over time, it's that really deep knowledge that will be extremely valuable as you want to scale and in your marketing.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of people probably don't know this, but for our brand, which is now, not what it was 8 years ago in size, we're a lot bigger than when we originally started, but we actually started our brand on Etsy. So I feel like this is something that's really close to my heart. It's something that we kind of built up from the ground up, and starting from Etsy and Etsy shop, everybody's familiar with this. It doesn't really get much more direct customer than that, other than, I guess, just having your own shop where you're actually seeing your customers. So a lot of important things can happen at this stage. Really, your best way to stand out from those larger brands is to be as personal as possible. It's most likely the case that that customer is buying from you because they want that personal experience, because they could just go to Amazon or they could just go to their local store or mall and just get the same thing that they're probably going to get from you. So having that personal experience and being able to, whether it's throwing a handwritten note or just give a special thank you, can go a long way when you're trying to separate yourself from, the mammoths of the world, such as Amazon.
Yeah, everybody has an establishment, where the people know their name, they know what your usual order is. They're excited to see you. You're excited to see them. That's just a great feeling. So any way you can replicate that on the e-commerce side will, just like Mark said, give you a leg up on any big competitor who doesn't really value the individualization of the customer. I would say that's really something, a big movement in the country now. Shop local, and so the more localized you can make your e-commerce brand feel, the better off you'll be.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even even now, even as we've gotten bigger, we still almost try to keep that small feel. Believe it or not, our company is now up to 30 plus people, and we still don't really want to let that go, because, as Ben is saying, like, it's not relatable to be buying from someone who's, the size of Amazon or Walmart or whatever it is. So just hanging on to that as long as possible and trying to do those type of things, even as you get bigger, you're almost going to mimic the same things that you were doing when you were smaller. So figuring those things out are going to pay dividends as time goes on in your business.
Yeah, and I think a great example of how you can do that super early, and then as it grows and as it can kind of scale, is kind of what Ben mentioned earlier, right? Like, in the beginning, you're probably sending an email from your email address. Like, it probably is coming from like jeremy@company.com. But what you can do as you scale in your marketing, that's really interesting over time, is you can just put the sender name. So, right, you can use your like hi at whatever or your help at email to actually be sending marketing emails. Then you just change the sender name, and this can be done in SMS. Like, this can be done in basically any channel that has a personal connection. But if you just change that so it's like jeremy@blacktees.com or whatever your brand name is, it's one of those very small things that it's going to make them more likely to open it, more likely to engage them, because it sounds like it's coming from a real person. The other cool thing that I think Ben mentioned earlier also is actually updating your email signature of your emails as well. I think a lot of people want to have these like big corporate emails unless you have a big business, and they take out the email signature of like what you would send to another person. And that's another great way. Also, you can stuff other things like follow us on social, leave a review, all those other really high value activities for your brand. Because I think what's so important, especially early on, and even up to your first probably a couple $100,000 in sales, is also telling your narrative and really weaving that into the buying process as well. Because those early customers are going to become your evangelists, where you're either going to stay around for a really long time and buy for a lot of purchases from your store over time, or they're going to be the customers that go and tell all of their friends, everyone they know about your business. And having that narrative and that story and really working it out yourself and fleshing that out is so important. because people are going to share the narrative of your brand more than I bought this one product that I really like.
Yeah, I think just treating that in the early stages especially, you have to, just to get any leg up, you treat it just like any other friendship. You're going to gather as much information as you can about a person. You want to read their reviews. You want to reach out to them after they had their review. Hey, thanks for that great review, right? You want to read the responses to the emails and respond back to them. You want to know what they like about your company, what they don't, when their birthday is, find as much information as they can about that. And that's really going to help you personalize any messages going forward. It'll help you personalize products to something that they like. It'll help you kind of build that community feel that we always talk about and get an idea of the demographic of your actual customer. And that stuff is super important. So I kind of wanted to dive into that too.
Yeah, one thing I want to piggyback on that, because I think it is so important. Some interesting founder stories is replying to people, whether it's an email, SMS, whatever channel it's going to be, like actually sending a personal note back when you respond to someone. One of my favorite stories is Alex Ohanian from Reddit. Even when the company was like thousands of employees, millions of users, he would randomly select CS tickets to respond to. And it's one of those things of like, it doesn't need to be some crazy process. It doesn't need to be super well thought out, but just even going in and occasionally just responding to customers. It's one of those things of, you may not think it's personalization because it's not this dynamic, really well designed front end experience for the customer getting exactly what they want at the right time. But it's showing that your brand cares about them and that you're reaching out to them. And I think another great example in this line is sending handwritten notes. It's very time consuming and it's pretty difficult. But if you can do it and you can figure out a simple way from early days, and I know you guys have a really great tactic of how you did this as the brand grew, but just including that when you ship the products out, like giving something that also that physical feel, there's just something different about that. It just seems a lot more personal when they can actually hold something that was written from the company.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely go into that a little bit. I mentioned the handwritten notes. That's definitely something that we did in the early days of Etsy. We'd have 50 orders a day and we'd sit there and we'd write out 50 notes. That's obviously not very scalable, but it's how you set yourself apart at that time. And one thing that we realized as time went on, reached maybe like a 5-person company or so, we knew our customers knew us. We were a face of the business. It was important that they see us and they know who we are, especially to have repeat customers. Like, it's one thing if it's like a one-off thing, but if you want them to come back to buy more, it's really important that they can associate a face with that. So one thing that we did for a very long time, and I wish that we could have hung on to it as long as or longer, I guess, was in every order we had a packing card, and all 5 employees or 6 employees, maybe is where we maxed out, had created bit emojis. So basically like the Snapchat emojis where they look like you. We printed those onto the packing cards. We put little check boxes next to each person. And depending on who was sending out that package, you would just check your name. So when customers would receive that, they would look at it and they would say like, oh, Mark packaged my order, or Ben packaged my order. And I bought 3 times now. I've got Mark 3 times. Like, you can relate to that person. Unfortunately, that's not something I can hang on to forever, but that is something that in the early stages is able to be something that stands out in a customer's mind.
Yeah, and the reason why I love that tactic specifically is it's one of those things of you set up the infrastructure so that it's very easy to personalize that as you grow, right? Like, I'm sure you guys printed out thousands of those cards and then someone just checked it. They weren't like handwriting the note every single time that they were shipping an order. And so that's something of like in the very early days, you can do the handwritten notes, you can scale that up. And then there's those other types of things that you can continue to include, that it just makes it feel like it's a great relationship. I think the other thing that's kind of similar of, and I feel like it's very interesting, like we're talking about personalization so much, and we're talking so much about like the brand out versus customer in. So it's also very counterintuitive. It's behind the scenes stuff. And so that's something that I always really enjoyed, was we would photo shoots, stuff going on in the office, stuff going on in the warehouse. Like, we would just shoot really short videos, especially with social media now. It's so easy to send it out, whether it's just like hey, here's a behind the scenes of an upcoming product launch. Here's a cool thing we were doing in the office. Here's a fun team event that we were doing. And it took someone maybe like a minute or 2 of their time to actually record it, figure out maybe 10 minutes to figure out what we wanted to shoot, posted it. And people just really like love that stuff. Like they want to engage with that content. They want to hear more about it. They don't just want to buy products. And it's something that was very low effort and very low touch in resources, but very high dividends.
Yeah, this is a strange like human phenomenon that people find this stuff so fascinating that it's just an alternate angle of something that's already going on. They get to see the finished product of the photo shoot. They get to see the beautiful finalized pictures, but they want that angle of the person taking the picture because it just looks organic. It puts it something you can relate to, which is again, that's like the core of everything that we're talking about. It's that relationship that you could see yourself being in that room when the photo is being taken. So yeah, anything that you can do to give them a behind the scenes of the unpolished side of your business makes them feel like they know you more, and it gives them a little insight to, hey, they are real people. This isn't just a machine doing this. So yeah, that's a really great tip.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot of ways to go about the behind the scenes content. And I think everybody knows how important that is, right? I mean, I'll just continue to compare to, Amazon here. Like Amazon's not going to give you behind the scenes content of their warehouse because that may not be the most pleasant thing for people to see. So that's an advantage for a small business. That's a huge win for you. So you should be leveraging it. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. I mean, Jeremy mentioned some video content vended as well. You can work that into social posts. You can work that into blogs on your website. And you want to be strategic about what it is that you're showing. Obviously, it's easy enough to kind of just walk through your warehouse and show some packaging, even if that warehouse is like one room in your house. That's perfectly fine. That's extremely relatable, and people appreciate that hustle and that effort. But you could go further with it. Like good ways is to basically humanize maybe some issues that you're having within the business. So like if you're running out of inventory too quickly, talking about that, explaining why that is. If you're behind on orders and you're not getting them out fast enough, like you can take a customer who's angry because they haven't received their order and turn them into someone who's super passionate about your business because they now understand that their current order is late because you guys are really busy with a lot of stuff because everybody loves what you're selling. So giving that behind the scenes content has a lot of benefits to it, and it's not something that can always happen at bigger phases. There are examples of it. I feel like brands like Gymshark do it really well, but it is more suited for the smaller business, so it should be taken advantage fully.
Yeah, definitely. I think the major shift, especially in like the past, say 5-10-ish years, is customers now want to know how the sausage gets made. I feel like previous businesses, it was all about having this really nice, refined, finished product. You buy it, you have a great experience. That's it. Customers want to be so much more involved with the brand. They want to feel like a true stakeholder of the business. That I feel like it's one of those nice moments, especially if you can turn a negative into a positive and like share that story, that people will love it. Because the one thing that's tough about e-commerce businesses in general is somebody doesn't just walk into your store. You have a face-to-face interaction and they can see how big your business is. Like, I think that's the big difference of e-commerce is like, you can buy from a random store and you can't tell if they're a 5-person team or a 50-person team. Like, it's very difficult for a customer to understand the difference of scale. And so I think another big piece of that is sharing your story and sharing like where you are as a business. Like you both have mentioned already, sharing like, hey, we're not a big business, it's a small team. There's that piece behind it. I think the interesting trade-off though of it not being a retail business and not having that is we collect so much more data. And so what's really interesting is, especially early on, also if you're just like good at Googling and that's a skill that you have, you can really have this like VIP treatment or like figure out who are big notable customers. And so one of the really interesting stories from very early on from Lumi was our founders noticed that there was this one order that was very large from this person that sounded like they had a familiar name, but didn't know who it was. They did some researching. They found out that it was a business manager for the Kardashian family. And that was actually how the relationship started to trickle to eventually Kim Kardashian being the brand ambassador for the company. And so I think that's another really important skill, and to have it's not easy to really scale up, but just have someone keep an eye on it and to create personal experiences for people who you would consider to be a VIP, or they just placed a big order. Like that was one specific example. We also have people who just bought thousands of dollars, and we would do personal follow-ups to them. Like literally someone would either get on the phone, send them a video, or send them a personal email. And especially when you're early and like someone places that large of an outsized order from your store, because you can't have that like thank you and really have an emotive personal reaction, sending that extra touch, making sure that if anything goes wrong with their order, you're immediately following up with them. Like figuring out all of those high touch moments are so important, because you never know whether that person's going to come back and be a super evangelist and spend tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars from your store, make that key introduction to you for a distribution partner or a marketing partner, like any of those types of things. And so just keeping an eye on that, like keeping a track on orders and then sending out those messages. I mean, the other thing you can do is, if you have enough time and bandwidth, is do that also for the customers that aren't VIPs. Like just do that for the customer who places a random order. Like those things just go a really long way, even if it's just sending out a quick email or text message.
Yeah, I think the video message is such a cool idea. It's just another form of media that's just like a handwritten note, especially if you can do it starting out at a individualized scale of being like, "Hey, I saw, hey, Mark, I saw that you just ordered this red shirt. We find it goes really good with the black shorts. You're really gonna love it. Super soft. We're getting it out the door right now as we speak." And when you receive something like that, you're like, "Wow, this person." Not only did they package my order, and it's awesome to know that my order's going out, but they took the time to make this message. I think people and customers understand and respect that it takes time to do these things. So they really find it just amazing. And it's a great form of communication. It really is. And we'll go into it more in the scaling episode, how you can scale that up. But I think reaching out to customers individually and talking to them about the specific products that they ordered, asking them for feedback, offering them a way to get in touch with your customer support if they have any issues, is really just a super cool growth hack to get going in personalization.
Yeah. In that same vein, I think, and also a really nice touch is the random free product. Like I feel like a lot of times early stages or CS teams will kind of rely on that like extra refund, discount, free product if something goes wrong. But if somebody orders something and you just drop in, it doesn't need to be expensive, but just drop in another free product and like with a note of like, hey, we saw that you ordered this, we think you'll really like this, and just like give it to them, assuming you can afford it and assuming like the math works out there. That can be another really nice touch. I think the other thing that is something that I don't see enough brands set up early enough, but is so valuable and is so just naturally scales as the business does, is the birthday flow. So Ben, can you just quickly walk us through like what it is, how to set it up, and then how to really like configure the actual flow in the email itself to generate a lot of return over time?
Yeah, I'm sure everyone listening has probably done this for themselves personally in some business form or another. But what you do is basically ask your customer for their birthday, or take a note of when they made their first order with you. That can be in the email capture. You can actually email them and ask them for that, if have them fill out a form of some kind. And then you set up a flow, an automated flow in your email to send them a discount a week or two before their birthday and say, "Hey, we know this your birthday is coming up. Here's 10%, 20% off to the store. Treat yourself, get yourself a birthday gift." And that, again, it makes the person feel special. Oh, wow, this company knows my birthday's coming up. They're taking care of me. It's a great thing. And the same thing with the anniversary. Hey, you bought from us for the first time 1 year ago. Here's 20% off if you're ever thinking of coming back. And that just kind of keeps you top of mind and really lets the customer know, wow, they really, took note of when I first went there or when my birthday is. It points them out, picks them out of a crowd, and makes them feel special. And that's kind of what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean it's a reason to reach out, right? It's a reason, like you said, Ben, to stay top of mind, but on a personal level. So it's one thing to reach out and say, hey, we're having this sale and everybody's kind of getting this email, or even if it's slightly segmented, for the most part, there's still hundreds or thousands of people receiving this. But when you receive an email or a text message or even an ad in your Facebook feed that's saying something like happy birthday and your birthday is 1 week away, that's obviously something that is going to grab your attention. Even myself as an experienced marketer, every time I see an email that mentions happy birthday around the time of my birthday, I'm paying attention to that because you know it's specific to me and it feels unique and it stands out from the rest.
Yeah, definitely. And one tactic that I found that I've seen a lot of brands have a lot of success with is a free product. So like picking one specific free product, figuring out like, okay, this doesn't cost us that much, and basically just giving a discount code for that specifically. Because you're really playing on people's reciprocity there of like you've already given them something, so they're more likely to come back. And I always find it really funny, like customer stories of like, oh, I got a free product and ended up spending $300 at the store, or like went on a shopping spree because they got like a small thing for free. So that's just something to keep in mind. And I think the birthday thing is such a great example of like ask for customers information from them in a creative way. That's just a little bit of data that then you can use down the road to segment them. So birthday is great, right? That directly leads into that flow. You set that flow up, and the beauty of that flow is, right, it's a very set it and forget it flow. Like assuming that you don't need to change anything out. You can just run that, and maybe you update it every couple of years to keep it fresh for customers, because also they're not going to see it that frequently. I think another big thing is if you sell like products for different types of customers or different categories of customers, simplest one being like gender differences, just asking very early on for men, male, female. I cannot tell you, I signed up for Forever 21's account one time and literally just got like jumpsuits and like female clothing, and I was just like, this is a terrible experience. And it's really funny because it's like it's so basic segmentation. It's really the cornerstone of a good personalization product at scale. And as you just trickle these things over time, right? Like as someone comes into your brand, you ask for thing one, and then a birthday, and then you keep going over and over time, especially as you start to get more creative around your business. And so something like SMS keywords is a great way to do this. Like, hey, do you prefer white or black? Do you prefer like something durable or soft? Like those types of questions over time, you just eventually build this huge repository of data on your customers that then will go, okay, let's get creative and go, for this event, what is something that someone said that's this response and that's that response? And that segmentation will allow you to get very personal, because it will allow you to filter out all the stuff that you know that the customers don't care about.
Yeah, I think aside from just personalization, this is going to be extremely important with the new email rules coming into place too. The more you can really get a grasp on what your customer is like from a personal standpoint is going to help you succeed when we're losing the ability to track some data. So asking them for it in a creative way, like Jeremy said, keeping that and using it to your advantage will help you keep your list clean, help you generate sales, well down the line.
Yeah. So we could talk about this stuff all day, to be honest. Like this is honestly the stuff we find the most fun. There's a lot of really creative things that you can do in this space, but you got to get back to running your business. So we hope that this was really helpful. Next week, we'll be talking all about advanced scaling strategies. So how can you get really in the weeds? How can you, as your business starts to grow, face that just constant challenge that everybody does, right? Of our business getting bigger, we can't have this like specific touch for every single thing that we do. So we're going to just dive into what are strategies that you can do that as you get bigger and as it gets more complicated, you still have those tactics that already feels like it is a personal touch, and you're not getting those like blanket high first name with colons and brackets around the experience. But yeah, we're really excited to dive into that next week. Thanks for listening to another week's episode of the Messenger Mastermind podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with another e-commerce marketer. And always let us know what you think down in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe. If you're looking for cutting-edge tactics and the resources that we rely on to run our businesses, sign up for our newsletter. We'll include a link down below. As always, stay confident, connect with your customers, and keep crushing.